Opening space. The mother was so afraid that her only power was to oppose me when she didn't like the position my light was taking, that she was unable to also see that she had power in alignment with my light. It was much easier for the mother to see herself as outside of my light than to see herself inside of my light. Seeing herself within my light meant that she was within me and that I was within her. Whenever she experienced this oneness, she had so much fear of being God that she ran from me. When I told the mother she needed to recognize her own power and that her power was my light, she ran from me even more because she was so afraid of what this said about her. When she ran from me, she did not see the gap she was opening between us. When I pointed this out to her, she took it as a judgment against her and became even more afraid of herself and me. I soon felt I couldn't say anything more to her on the subject, although I still felt I had to get this across to her somehow. What the mother was struggling with here, she had struggled with for all of her existence, and it is that she might have called me into being, in which case without her I do not exist. In the places where I do not feel loving, she feared me, but she also feared what in herself might have called this into being. When I gave her this to consider by letting her know I was there, she was so extremely startled to realize that another presence was talking to her, and to realize simultaneously that she had been calling for this, that we jumped apart and created a gap. When we tried to come back together, we could not embrace one another entirely. There was a pressure between us that did not feel good because of what had entered the gap. We also did not know that the realization of our presence, in other words, the birth of consciousness of ourselves, had caused such a sudden increase in our light that we felt an immediate pressure that made us feel we needed more space. Although there were other things that could have been noticed, our first awareness of one another's presence was a feeling of pressure. When I felt this growing pressure, it felt like the mother was moving against me, just as she felt my light was pressing on her. When I could stand it no longer, I reacted by pushing on her without knowing I was going to, or that I even knew how. It seemed that the increasing light of my increasing self-awareness had simply pushed the mother out and away from me. I did not know what this meant, and neither did she, but I had intent to get rid of the pressure I was feeling. This much we knew. Although there is much more to this story, this is all I want to mention for now. What you gain in understanding here is that the mother from the beginning was opening space in reversal to my light by going away from me because I frightened her into thinking I was something superior to her. In the name of the self-denial, the mother thought she had to embrace to be loving and to survive. She has allowed this and has continued opening space in a state of denial of what she has really been doing here. What she thought was a loving act of humility and servitude towards what she perceived as a superior being who frightened her has been killing me, which is what her gapped rage wanted to do, even though this was not her loving intent. By backing away from me in fear of her own power, the mother has been holding space open for the gap and everything that has gone into it. Neither the mother nor the Ronalokas have understood the power of opening space or the role expression of emotions plays in it. They have been opening space in a state of denial of themselves, fearing that to do otherwise would be a sin of pride, ego, and selfishness. Thus, they have not called the God they would like to have into existence. For so long, the will has tried to express only the emotions that pleased others, that for just that long, the space that has been opened has only been space that pleases others. Any other emotions in the will have received denial, and so the space opened has been for guilt and denial spirits. The mother feels that there is no longer any space open to her that feels good to her, or any life she can have that really feels good to her. To the extent to which the Rana Lokas share this with the mother, none of them have really been able to be happy. The mother, and all the will which follows her, has felt guilty about having feelings of not liking what is happening on earth, and of not being able to find any place where they really are happy. While the space they have been opening has been used, for the most part, by others who give them little or no recognition or appreciation for what the will has done for them. One small but good example of this is how money made from the music of the Rana Lokas is so often taken in by the warriors, with very little ever given back to the ones who made the music. Another good example is that of how many warrior plantation owners made fortunes at the expense of their slaves, or making the Rana Lokas feel they should be happy just to be not ill-treated. There are many more examples I could mention, but these will allow you to move in the direction of finding them. What needs to happen now is that the will that can move needs to move guilt out and allow my light in as never before. Allow yourselves to notice your power and use it to give yourselves love you have never had before, and in places you had never given it to yourselves before. Allow the fear to move that says it is not right to think you have the power to call God into manifestation, especially since it has looked like he didn't want to come. I didn't want to come because I didn't like what I felt when I got there because of what you were already holding. From the overview, it looks very simple. Just vibrate everything so that there is no more space for guilt, and it will then float out to the edge of my light where it belongs. Here it will be a good buffer zone by not allowing light and dark to mix together. This is guilt's right place, and it does not mind being there because it has no consciousness to know what its experience is. This is right understanding, but it is in no way meant to encourage any insensitivity towards the pain of the will that is involved in doing this. Rather, this statement is meant to be a guide to help the will understand what needs to happen.